Hey gang, it's Jim Farmer here. Thanks for joining in for a new episode of our Tuesday night tackle talk. Tonight we got kind of a special show. It's a special edition here. Uh, a couple things going on. We got a couple guests tonight that are going to join us. One of them's really not our guest. He's one of our regulars, Jimmy, but I call him a special guest tonight because we're mainly going to talk about Lake Hartwell and Jeff and I's trip to Lake Hartwell and the military championship. But also, as well as talking about the military championship and Lake Hartwell and what Jeff and I kind of did to catch our fish on Lake Hartwell. One of our guests tonight is going to be Chuck Thrasher from Lip Thrashing Baits. And uh, just a little about Chuck. And one of the reasons I got him on the show is we've been using Chuck's baits for a while now. And right before we left for Hartwell, Jimmy Sanders had given me some baits that Chuck made for us. And I took five of Chuck's baits to Hartwell. And it turns out on day one, it was real instrumental in getting us one of our last keepers that put us up there a good ways in the standing after day one. So I wanted to get Chuck on the show tonight and chat a little bit about Chuck's baits and how they helped us. And even last year, I used Chuck's baits a good bit, slick stick and a few other things. But we're going to chat about that. And Jeff and I, we had a really good time. We really enjoyed it. Hey, one thing I wanted to do was if everything looks okay and everything looks okay, sounds okay, can somebody just kind of give me a thumbs up out there and let me know? I'm using Lisa's laptop tonight. I've been using mine, but we had like some audio and video trouble, so I wanted to see if a newer laptop worked. My old laptop, thanks Connor, I appreciate it. I see your thumbs up. My old laptop was like full of chicken biscuit crumbs and like dried cheese and all that stuff. So it wasn't working very well. So anyway, I bummed Lisa's laptop and it looks pretty good on my end. I've already been talking to Jeff's been in the studio, Jimmy's been in the studio, Chuck's been in the studio. They're all sitting in the green room right now. So I'm gonna start bringing them on before too long, but I'm gonna let a few other people come on in before we get going. Thanks, Connor. It sounds better this time than the last. Yeah, me too. The picture looks a lot better to me. I had to negotiate the microphone. If you see like what was that? That's my right shoulder there. But you see that microphone. It's not really plugged in anything, but I like having a microphone up there. And Lisa told me to get rid of it, but I'll put it back up here. Mike's really just a prop, but I like having a microphone. Kind of makes it look more like a podcast, but she wouldn't let me wear the headphones. They're right over here. I was going to wear them. I wasn't going to plug them in. But yeah, she told me not to do that. So anyway, don't have any headphones on tonight, but I got a fake microphone in front of us. So I wrote some notes tonight. I wanted to make a couple notes. First off, thanks for joining in. And two, I wanted to give a shout out to Matt O'Connell. I think that this weekend they're having the All-American up at Lake Cherokee in northern Tennessee. And if I'm right, he's probably up there now, I would imagine. But Matt just won Angler of the Year for the Toyota Series. It was his first year. And we want to congratulate Matt. Matt's an old friend. He used to stay here way back in the day. He used to stay here at the Man Cave quite a bit when he fished with there a good bit. So the Man Cave's real familiar with Matt. And we just want to give a shout out to Matt and wish him luck this coming weekend. And let's see, Jimmy Sanders, he's going to be with us later. He's going to kind of bring up the rear. And I wanted to have Jimmy on tonight just to kind of talk about Lake Lanier and actually what it's like to fish the creek without me being in the creek. So Jimmy doesn't have to like follow me around everywhere and me getting all this fish all lip sore and stuff. So we're going to have Jimmy on here in a little bit. He'll kind of wind it down for us. Me, Jeff, and Jimmy will kind of finish it up. But let's see, what else have I got? I wanted to talk first. I wanted to bring Jeff on, and we were going to talk about Hartwell a little bit. And before I bring Jeff on, I kind of wanted to tee up our Hartwell trip, and then we'll get to talking about Hartwell. So the military, once a year, the ABA, the American Bass Anglers um, Trail, I guess you could call it, they have a military championship, and the military championship is a tournament where military fishermen, bass fishermen from all over the country can kind of come together and get together and have a tournament for military folks, whether you're a veteran or active duty. I was really surprised, but Jeff was telling me for the active duty folks, they can actually get time off to come fish this thing. I think it's TDY or some 3-letter thing like that. But active duty can come fish it. Veterans can fish it. Retirees can come fish it. Jeff and I were kind of unique. It kind of threw them for a curve because usually when teams fish this military championship, they're from one branch of the service. They'll represent the Army, the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, so on, so forth. Jeff and I were kind of unique because we represented both Jeff being the Army and me being the Navy. So it kind of threw him for a loop a little bit. But Jeff and I entered it. Jeff invited me to jump in it with him a long time ago, and I took him up on it, but I really didn't know much about it until it kind of got closer. But it was at Lake Hartwell, and it's usually, with they have like a dinner before the tournament. The tournament's a 3-day tournament. Then you throw in the dinner. That happens on Tuesday. So Monday was kind of a travel day for Jeff and I, and so we traveled over to Hartwell on Monday. Got there on Monday afternoon. Pre-fish Tuesday was a good day of pre-fishing with a dinner that evening for all the teams. There was a big dinner in a banquet room at a hotel, and kind of broke everything down for us. Tournament started on Wednesday and ended on Friday. So it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the tournament. So we really didn't have any chance to pre-fish the lake except for the days that we got there. It wasn't like we had been there earlier to kind of graph things, mark cane piles, brush piles, that kind of stuff. So we really kind of went in there a little bit crippled in that we really didn't do our homework ahead of time, probably like we should have. We were just coming there the week of, and we had about a day and a half to kind of figure things out. Didn't get a whole lot of dock talk, didn't listen to a whole bunch of what was going on, but here's the thing is Jeff and I know how to fish a blueback lake, Lanier. And so our mindset is kind of like, the blueback kind of mindset. So going into Lake Hartwell, we had that going for us. And I think that helped us out a lot. But I will say this, it was kind of riddled with all kinds of exciting things that happen. I don't know. It seems like every fishing trip anymore I've got turns into a story one way or another. But I will say this to kind of set it up before I bring Jeff on. I kind of underpacked for this thing, and probably I brought enough clothes. I'll say that, and enough hats, which that comes into play later. But I kind of underpacked in the tackle part of it. My tackle box that I brought, and he'll attest to this, was a small cooler about 8 inches by 10 inches that was designed to hold about 3 Cokes and a bag of chips. So I stuffed the tackle that I was going to bring with me into that little cooler container. And it amounted to about 7 different baits. Honestly, it did. About saying Jeff, he's probably in the studio nodding right now, but it amounted to about 7 different baits. And so that's what I brought with me. But I'm going to go ahead and bring Jeff on, and he can get in on this because I can see him kind of cracking up. But anyway, what's up, Jeff?
I'm sitting here chuckling, reminiscing.
I know. So anyway, So I didn't bring enough baits, obviously. So, I mean, I did in a way because there was one bait that I did bring that stood out above all the baits. And I'm so thankful that I brought that bait. But I'm even more thankful that you had one too in your tackle box, which really made the trip. I mean, it really helped us out tremendously. But I'll go over a couple baits that I threw in my bag and I had tied on. Of course, you can't go anywhere without a shaky head. You got to have a shaky head. So I had plenty of shaky heads, or I had 3 or 4 shaky heads. So I had that going for me. And I had a couple of Robbie's underspins, a couple underspins. I had that going for me. A couple gunfish because they were hitting the gunfish on Lanier, and I was basing some of the baits that I brought off of what was going on in Lanier. And the week before we left, I pulled out a 105 gunfish that was chrome out of my boat, and I tied it on. And I sent Jeff a picture because I wanted little Joe, to see it because Joe, he loves the Chapo. So I tied this Chapo on, this 105 Chapo, and I went out on the lake one afternoon, and it was working good. So I sent a picture to Jeff. Chapo fish, told him it was working good. And something told me to bring that Chapo, 105 Chrome Chapo, to Hartwell. So I brought it to Hartwell. I had it tied on. And another bait, Chuck Thrasher had given Jimmy Sanders some of his knockoff, what's the name of that bait?
Skimmer.
Skimmer.
The knockoff skimmer.
Exactly, the knockoff skimmer. So, Chuck had given Jimmy Sanders some of those, and Jimmy split them with me. So I had 5 of those, and I threw them in my little pouch too. So now I had 5 of Chuck's skimmers in the pouch. And there was a spinner bait. I had a mini me spinner bait in there, a couple of 1 or 2, but not many. And I didn't have much else besides that.
No, I think you literally had like 7 baits.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had
that's
7,
not an exaggeration. It was like 7 baits plus a couple tied on your rod, so you may have had 9 total.
There you go. Yeah,
like
so
not types, but individuals.
I know, but my mindset was I was only going to need 1 of them, But anyway, we took off on Monday morning. We left for Hartwell. We got there, I don't know, shortly after lunch, and one of the things that you usually do when you do this and you get to lakes is you just put the boat in the water and go for what I call a fam tour, a familiarization, to where you just kind of move around and see what everything looks like. So we did that Monday afternoon, and we jump fished a lot Monday afternoon, didn't we, Jeff? We just kind of looked around. And
yeah, we fished a little shallow, a little deep, docks, points. Arguably a bluff at one point in time, a worm, topwater, spinnerbait. I mean, we threw the whole bag of tricks at them.
Yeah. We were just kind of trying to find any kind of pattern that we could find, and just throwing a lot of different things. And we focused a lot on worms that first afternoon because if I remember right, it was pretty flat, so we didn't have a lot of wind to work with. So So we just kind of gravitated towards the docks, and we caught fish. I mean, we caught a lot of fish that first afternoon on worms. There was no size to a lot of them, if I remember right. A lot of them seemed like they may have been males in the grass between the docks. Maybe, is that about right?
Yeah, I think we caught more between than actually on the docks themselves. But yes, I mean they were males, and they weren't what we were going to need later on in the week. So we kind of abandoned that idea after that day.
Yeah. That first afternoon, it was kind of helpful to get out there and just kind of feel around a little bit and just kind of get a feel. But actually, Tuesday, we had the whole day to pre-fish, and we did a lot of elimination. Now, I will say this. on Monday afternoon, evening time, we got a little rain in the evening, little shower moved in, kind of rain, clouded up a little bit. And I had the chrome Chapo tied on. And I was throwing the snot out of that thing off and on. Anytime we got around a point, I was going to throw the chrome Chapo. So that first afternoon, it was evening time, we were kind of on a point. And I caught a decent one, maybe a lower end tournament fish on the Chapo topwater on point. So I kind of thought, well, that was in calm water. What would it be like if we put a little chop on that water? And I thought, this topwater might be the deal, because I think we had a couple blow ups on the Chapo too. And I think we had a couple blow ups on Chuck's skimmer too that evening.
We did.
But we kind of deduced that they would come up a little bit, even though it was flat and it was evening. We kind of had an idea that there might be a little bit of a topwater bite. And so that kind of came to fruition on Tuesday when we had all day. We focused on some more docks and backs of pockets and banks and coves and this and that. We threw a lot of worm. We threw a lot of mid column type stuff, moving stuff. And we mixed in the topwater too. And it just seemed like we could get a few on the topwater and we could get a few on the points. So we knew that was kind of a valid bite. Wouldn't you agree, Jeff, that the topwater was kind of something that was in the back of our minds?
Yeah, it seemed to be, at least as of Tuesday, it was the two ends of the water column. It was the topwater bite, some points, and then if we could find a hole in the grass on the points, a worm. That's what we gathered out of Tuesday, and I think that's what we went into Wednesday with. But of course, herring lakes being herring lakes, Wednesday didn't play out quite like like Tuesday.
No, it was and Tuesday was kind of junky. It was a little bit junky. We caught them a few different ways on Tuesday, so we were still kind of scratching our heads a little bit, but we kind of knew that we had a little bit going with the topwater, so we kind of thought we could gather a few that way, and if we had to try some other stuff, we had to try some other stuff. So Wednesday was the actual kickoff of the tournament, and we had settled on points, starting on points Wednesday morning early, if I remember right. We had decided that we were going to run about 5 or 6 points and just kind of cycle through that. By that time, we had made a plan that we could make our money off of points. So we were going to cycle through 5 or 6 different points that we had that produced. And so we were just going to see what we could do with that. One thing I will say about the Chapo was pretty instrumental on day 2. It was very instrumental. But on day 1, I kind of figured out the Chapo bite. So the way we would do is we'd pull up to a point. I'd fan cast the Chapo. Usually I could go through about a cycle or maybe 2 cycles of fan casting the Chapo, and we would probably get a blow up or a fish in that 2 cycles that last about 10 minutes. Once those fish heard and seen that Chapo after those 2 cycles of fan casting, they didn't want anything to do with the Chapo. So that's when you kind of had to switch over to Chuck's skimmer knockoff. But the Chapo usually would get a fish in the first 10 minutes, and then we'd go working other stuff. So it was a Chrome 105 Chapo. We come to a point. I was kind of lucky because if there was some wind, Jeff was pointing the boat in the wind, hitting the stop lock. I was in the back, which was downwind. So I got the best angle on everything from being in the back of the boat. One of the few times the back boater, the guy in the back gets kind of the pattern, but it just set up to where we would hit spot lock, point the boat into the wind. The guy in the back had like full, I could fan cast that Chapo from the back. And I'll tell you something else. If we were upwind of the point, now that's one thing that's crucial about the Chapo or just about any topwater bait. And I can't stress this enough. You want to be upwind when you're throwing topwater, especially the Chapo, because when you're bringing it back to the boat, you're bringing it against the grain. And when you're bringing it against the grain, it creates more of a topwater type disturbance. More disturbance attracts the fish. So if you were to take that Chapo and try and bring it back downwind, it's kind of moving with the wind, so it's not creating a lot of disturbance. So one of the things that make the Chapo work is when you're pulling it back against the grain or against the wind, it's got more surface disruption, and it seems to attract the fish a little better. So that's kind of what made the 105 Chapo and the Chrome work for Jeff and I, is the fact that we were upwind. Jeff was spot locked. Poor Jeff. I mean, you had to make you were casting from the front, pretty much over my shoulder some of the times, I'm sure. And I know that was hard, and you were throwing different baits, but I was kind of like stuck on Chapo, stuck on stupid, stuck on Chapo. So I was just steady chucking the Chapo. On day one, though, there was a myriad of things that went on, but on day one, I got excited and broke the Chapo off on Jeff's motor. So there went the Chrome Chapo. By that time, we were filling a sack, and I break the Chrome Chapo off, and I look at it, and the props broke off the back. So ain't no fixing that Chrome Chapo. It's dead. It ain't coming back. It ain't got no prop on the back. So this is where Jeff comes in. I'm like, dude, there went the Chrome Chapo. He breaks out the box. He's got another 105 Chrome Chapo. So we're back in business. Hey, Jeff, Jack Howell wanted to know what part of the lake we fish. And you're more of a navigator than I was. So what part of the lake did we actually fish, Jeff? Where was it?
We were pretty much where the Seneca and the Tougaloo River come together. So plus or minus probably 2 miles from the intersection going up rivers of the two. So where the two rivers intersect, going back up both of them about 2 miles is where we stayed the majority of the time.
So yeah, kind of in that intersection, Jack. But we kind of cycled through 5 or 6 different points that just steadily produced. And when I say steadily produced on day one, it was a grind. It really turned into a grind. And I'll say this. I think that we had caught a couple smaller fish early, but we really needed to do some work. And Jeff had the underspin. You had the underspin in the front. You were able to scope some cane piles, and that underspin, I believe, got us, was it 1 or 2 keepers on day one, Jeff?
I think it got us 2, and then let's not discuss the other 2.
Oh yeah, well,
we're going to talk about those.
Yeah, we'll leave that out for the most part, but
probably a good call.
Well, for training purposes, we probably should say something.
But
we didn't fish clean, but hey, look. It wasn't your fault, Jeff. I mean, here's the deal. We lost 2 fish on day one, and they may or may not have been. Turns out they wasn't instrumental, really. At the end of the day, they wasn't. But first one, you couldn't help it. Fish jumped, shook his head. Underspin comes out, flies out of the fish, sticks in my shoulder. That's nothing you can do about that. So we had that. So anyway, it didn't stick me bad in the shoulder. I mean, I could pull it out. So it wasn't that big a deal. But you couldn't help that fish. And the second one, I know it was a good sized fish. You're fighting it. I'm fighting, trying to get the net. And the fish breaks off. Fish breaks off, right? Am I right? That's what happened. The fish broke off.
It was there and it was gone. And I was like, what the hell?
Bam. So, I'm like, and it happens. It happens to everybody. I'm like, okay. Jeff throws the rod down. He's looking down. I'm still trying to dig the net because the whole net was wedged into a door, and I couldn't get it out of the door. So I couldn't have netted the fish had you even got it to the boat. But you're looking down. You threw the rod down. I'm looking down because we really needed that fish. We were running out of time. And I'm just like, dang, man, dang. But here's the deal, man. I'm like, keep your chin up, kind of thing. Let's just keep grinding. Nothing we can do about it. it happens, you know, trying to just keep our spirits up. And and we needed one more. We had one more dig in the live well, and we had 10 minutes to go. And this is where Chuck, I could see you in the studio, Chuck, but this is where I had went through the Chapo. They were done with the Chapo. I tied on Jeff's extra Chapo, but they wasn't playing Chapo games anymore. So I'm like, now what? You know, they would get tired of that Chapo. You could run that Chapo over them after 5 or 10 minutes, and they didn't want anything to do. You had to catch them by surprise with the Chapo. So, okay, so they're burnt out on the Chapo. I know they're burnt out on the Chapo. So I'm like, got to go with Chuck's skimmer. So it was chrome, and this is a whole chrome deal. It's a chrome deal, you know. So I tie on Chuck's skimmer. I kid you not, Jeff's sitting here, and he'll attest to this. I'm jerking that skimmer, jerking that skimmer. We're coming down to the wire. We got less than 10 minutes left. We need to get rid of that 1-pounder we got in the live well. I'm jerking that skimmer back to the boat, working it back to the boat, and I look down, and there's a big shadow under that skimmer. That big shadow right there by the boat, that big shadow comes up, and he whacks that skimmer, and he misses it. He misses it. And by this time, Jeff's looking. He sees what's going on over the side. And this is right by the boat. This is right by the side of the boat.
I had missed one too. I had one tugging on mine while that was going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had our opportunities, and he misses it right by the side of the boat. But you know what I did? I left it laying there. I left it laying there, and he didn't leave. He circled around, and he was so mad at that skimmer. He come back up there, and he just smoked that thing. And we probably had 5 minutes left before we had to get to weigh in. And I was just like, Jeff, by this time, Jeff had got the net, and he's right there. And I'm just like, please, Lord, let this fish get in this net. And Jeff got it in the net. And that was our fish. I knew it was going to upgrade us by a couple of pounds. I think, you know, it probably upgraded us by close to 2 pounds. I don't know, maybe not that much, but it definitely gave us an upgrade from the dink that we needed to cull. And Jeff holds up that dink, and he's like, this is what we're culling out. And I looked at it, and Jeff's big hand was like wrapped around it. And I was like, thankfully, we ain't got to take that little old thing to the weigh-in. So we had our 5th fish, you know, booked it to the weigh-in. And I was really surprised, you know, that after day 1, it was, you know, we were in 3rd place. But the more I talked to people, hey, Kurt, how you doing? The more I talked to people, the more I got a sense it stunk for everybody. It stunk for us too, but we didn't stink quite as bad as the others stunk, but it stunk for everybody. It was just the fish that we caught, Jeff, you can agree, they were beat up. The bigger ones, they looked like they'd been through the spawn, and they were kind of rough looking. You know?
Yeah, on Wednesday they were. I think every fish we caught on Wednesday was post spawn. Yeah. They were beat up. It was weird though, because Friday our fish weren't that beat up. I mean, they were, you know, half of the ones Friday weren't beat up. But it's just the way. Weird. Yeah, it is. So. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, when you got back in the boat Wednesday, after you weighed in the fish, and you're like, I think he said we're in 3rd. I'm like, did he forget the 0? 30th, right? No, I think 3rd. I'm like, there's no way.
I kept thinking in my mind, did he say 30? And I just missed the E part of it, and surely we're not in 3rd, but I could have swore that I heard him right. So I was pretty sure. And then after talking to Jack, and Jack said that it kind of stunk for him, we kind of saw him right there at the ramp. And so I was kind of deducing by this time it was stinking for a lot of people. So it wasn't that big a surprise for me to buy into the fact that we were in 3rd place. But so once we were there, you know, we had 2 more days, and then we had the whole storm thing that came in on Thursday, which they canceled the tournament for Thursday. So we really needed to do a little bit of maintenance on your boat anyway with the batteries. So it was probably a blessing in that aspect. And I'm thankful we wasn't out there trying to fish in those storms anyway, because it was a pretty rough day out there. Uh, what did kind of stink is we were right there at the cabin. We stayed at the Tougaloo State Park, and we had the lake right outside our back door. And it was hard not to walk down to that dock and start throwing a topwater to catch some hybrids. And Thursday was a down day. But before I forget, I want to talk about the hybrids there for just a second, because during the course of our stay there, we caught some hybrids. We caught some hybrids Wednesday, and we caught some on Friday, and those were a lot of fun. I've been to Hartwell before, and I've had the opportunity to catch hybrids and stripers before, and I know a lot about hybrids and stripers from back in the day. And man, Jeff, I know you had what, 3 or 4 hybrids on Friday?
4.
4 on Friday.
I think I had 4 on Friday, and you had 2 or 3 on Wednesday.
Yeah, I had 2 or 3 on Wednesday, and man, they were a lot of fun. And I thought to myself, I could actually go to Hartwell and stay at Tougaloo Park and make a day out of targeting hybrids that I could bring back and put in the freezer. And I may do that, but those hybrids are fighters, and I love the fact that they've got them in that lake, and we had some fun catching the hybrids too. They were kind of mixed in with the bass, but I think what the bass were doing was they were kind of like set up on these points, and the hybrids just kind of moved through in waves. Hybrids move a lot more. Bass will find some place and like set up camp there if there's a food source there and not a lot of pressure. Now hybrids, they're more like nomads. I mean, they'll move miles in a day. And so they just we had a school or two that just kind of moved through. They like hitting the points too, because there's usually bluebacks around them points, especially during the spawning period with bluebacks. So we were able to smack a couple hybrids and get some jollies that way on a couple of tournament days. But getting back to the tournament, Thursday was a down day because of the rain, storms. We swapped out a couple trolling motor batteries, and the more I think about it, Jeff, the more I'm thankful that we did, because it was so windy on Friday. We had to stay on that trolling motor all day long. And thankfully, we had those brand new 2 trolling motor batteries in the system. And I think that's what helped us, with the battery power that we needed too. So, anyway, not much happened in the way of rough stuff other than losing fish on day 1. And the hats. Yeah, I lost my hat, man. So the whole hat deal.
You threw your rod in the lake on day 1.
Oh, yeah, I did. I made a cast, and I was able to, on this cast, now this wasn't a cast that I broke a lure off on Jeff's motor, but on another cast, I managed to hook 2 of my rods. One of them I slung in the lake. The other one I slung up by where Jeff was standing in the front of the boat. But luckily, the one that I slung in the lake, the lure that I was casting was hung up in that rod, and I was kind of able to, drag it back to the boat and get it back into the boat. So not only did I break a chopo, I threw my rod in the water, but I mean, I've salvaged it. It was all good, Fur ball, that reel, it was a bait caster, and I can throw a bait caster. And that fur ball, that was one of them where you just might as well send it back to the manufacturer. You're not going to get that one out. But no, that was a bad fur ball. But anyway, it wasn't a bad deal. So, I mean, other than that, we didn't have any like big problems. My favorite hat with the American flag on it went flying. We circled around. I could see it. I was pointing at it the whole time we were coming up on it to get it out of the water. I grabbed the net, and that sucker, it was about 3 feet down by the time I got the net, and I went to scoop it, and I was too fat to reach that far, is what it boiled down to, and the hat sank. So I think it's a message that I need to lose weight. I probably would have got the hat back. But my big old belly got in the way, so I couldn't get it out. So now my hat sank. So Jeff, he's got another cast hat. He's wearing a cast hat, and he's got an extra one, so he gives it to me. So I got this brand new cast hat. So lost my hat on Wednesday. Thursday's down day. So that brings us to Friday. Now we're sitting in third place on Friday. And Jeff and I agreed that what got us to third place on Friday was those 5 or 6 points that, that produced the fish for us. So our plan was to just run those 5 or 6 points on Friday. Is that about right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it was 6, and we hit them probably 3 times a piece on Wednesday, and it's like, well, I mean, that's where we caught the fish, and then we knew that they were there on a couple, and we just like, we're going to rotate them, and that's really all we did for 8 hours on Friday was rotate for the first 7 hours, we just rotated the same 6 spots.
Yeah. So on Friday, it was just to make it short and simple, but there was a lot of things that happened on Friday that I won't get into. There was things that broke, things that snapped, things that popped. The wind was howling. It was howling about, I don't know, but it was whitecapping out there from the get-go, from the start. I thought hopefully the wind would die down a little bit during the course of the day, but it just got worse and worse. So Jeff and I knew that if we were going to get fish on Friday, we were probably going to get them early because it was like very, very post front early in the morning, still cloud cover, still low pressure. We just kind of figured if we were going to get our 5 fish, we were going to get them early. So what we did was we went out there, we started running the points, and this ain't no lie, Jeff will attest to it. The Chapo was the only thing that caught him on Friday, and it caught him quick. And they were pretty much back to back, little pause, another one, little pause, maybe a move, rotate here and there, little pause. After we caught the 4th one on Friday on that Chrome 105 Chapo, I broke it off on Jeff's motor. Now we got 4 fish in the boat. And the thing that got 4 fish in the boat on Friday, and at least one of them on Wednesday, we just broke it off. And we're 1 fish short of a limit on Friday, and we need that fish bad. And so we didn't have any more Chrome 105 Chapos. That was it. And it was like my whole world just fell apart right at that point because we were on a roll, bam, 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 bam on the Chrome Chapo in the wind on these points. I felt good. And then I'm just like, Jeff, no Chrome Chapo. And he's like, let me look in my Chapo box. So he looks at his topwater box and he pulls out a Chapo. He pulls out a Chapo. Oh, look what he's got. Is that a Chrome one? Is that Chrome?
Yeah, that was part of my resupply order the other day.
Dang. So we need 1 more fish, right? And it's down to crunch time. I mean, we had plenty of time left, but we had 4 fish. Chrome Chapo's gone. He pulls a pearl frosted Chapo with blue hue 105 Chapo out of his box. And I knew it wasn't Chrome, but I knew it was still overcast. And I know that those white and pearl and bone, when it's overcast, they can do it. So I tied that sucker on. Yeah, I started throwing it downwind, fan casting it. And not too long after I tied it on, we connected with our 5th fish. And that was our 5th fish. It was probably 2.5, something like that. And we were weighing them. Jeff had them sorted out. We knew that we had about 11.5 pounds. And we never caught another bass all day, did we?
Not a green one.
Not a green one. Yeah, I mean, you caught 4 hybrids during the course. But after we caught that 5th fish, I thought, shoot, that was like 10 o'clock. I thought, my God, we got all day to upgrade, and we got all day to punch a couple more tickets out here, and we never caught another greenfish after that.
We had them. I'm pretty sure I had one hooked up, and then the hybrid snatched the bait out of the fish's mouth, and then we had them jump over our baits, and I mean about every conceivable way of missing a fish known to mankind.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna bring Chuck on here because Chuck's waiting in the studio. I want to say hi to Chuck, and we want to thank him for the bait. So let's see if we can get Chuck in here. Hang on here. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Jim. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing? You looking good, buddy?
Hey, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Chuck, I'm going to kind of read a couple notes here that some people, if they got any questions, but Chuck, I wanted to thank you for your baits more than anything. And they were, and Jeff and I both agree, they were instrumental in what we did this week. And just to let everybody know, at the weigh-in, we wound up finishing second in the military championship. And big shout out to Chuck. Did we catch one? Did we wind up catching a keeper on a slick stick, Jeff?
We did. I caught one off that one spot where we did so well on.
Okay.
It was so good on Wednesday, and then Friday it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they just weren't there. But yes, we did catch one on the slick stick there.
So Chuck, we had one on the slick stick, and I think at least one on the skimmer knockoff too on day one, I believe. So. Two good baits. Appreciate it, Chuck. So, what do you got? What do you got in store for us now, Chuck? What's your big sellers right now? What's coming on, and what's doing good for you?
Well, for me right now, I'm using the white slick stick, and I haven't had a lot of takers on the chrome. I may have caught 10 in the past few trips. Mostly has been on the white, but I started using a white skimmer as well as the chrome skimmer. And I think it was Jeff that actually turned me on to the I'm a skimmer. He said, you need to find these things. And so I looked and looked and looked and, finally got a connection. And I really enjoy the skimmer bite. It seems to be, when they do get it, man, it's so aggressive. And kind of like the OG bite, Jeff, that you had told me about. Whenever I'm walking it, sometimes I'll do that pause there, and in the middle of that pause, I just get annihilated. So it's been a great bait, and also got a grande coming in that's a little larger than the skimmer that you guys have, and I think that's going to be a big player on lakes like Hartwell and Lanier. I can't say for sure, but if I was a betting man, I would be throwing it.
Yeah. Even the original grande has been a favorite of mine, Chuck. So on Lanier, and man, I tell you what, when we get into a little deeper into the summer, I think it'll work really good, especially out there on the main lake on some of those humps and stuff. So
I look forward to that that late summer, like we had last year, and of course I've got the riser knockoffs as well, and I had never heard of a riser till Jeff kind of threw it in my lap and said, "Here, try this." And holy cow, man, that was an insane summer for me last year. The most fish I ever caught in my life. And your buddy Jimmy, he went out with me that day, and he embarrassed me. 10 fish back to back, and I couldn't get a bite. What's going on with that?
I can see Jimmy in the studio. He's back there laughing.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. But
yeah, we have the slick stick. It's actually just coming on board right now. It's getting to the point where I'm getting a few bites on it. It hasn't hit the prime time yet, obviously, but I think we're right on the verge of that season. This weather is so wacky. Sometimes you get 80-degree days, and then we drop back down to 50-degree mornings. So we're gonna need a little more warm water and warm temperatures and some good sunlight. I want to see that chrome really turn on, because you guys made me fall in love with Lake Lanier. I just, man, once I get up there, I don't want to leave.
I know, man. It is hard to leave. Chuck, I wanted to ask you too. I think you've got a gunfish knockoff, don't you? Do you have a
Yes,
gunfish knockoff?
yes,
You
we
got
have
that
it.
chrome?
Yes, sir, we do.
Is it it's two hook? Is that right?
Yes, it is. It's a 4.1 inch 2 hook.
Yeah. And you use number four hooks on that, Chuck?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, good. That's one of my favorite. Well, a gunfish is one of my favorites. So I think Jeff told me that you had a gunfish. So that's good. I'm gonna have to get some of those for sure on Lanier.
We'll make sure that there's some in that nice, pretty boat you got now.
Let's hope so. Man, it's one of my favorites on Lanier is a gunfish, and man, I got to get with you on that because I've milked everybody about every gunfish they had, and then Jeff he hooked me up with some the other day. So we got to get with you, Chuck, and we got to get some of your gunfish really soon. So
Absolutely. I also got some vixens as well.
yeah, I know you do, and I know those are good too here on Lanier. So
I like the vixen, but I'm telling you, man, that skimmer is just every time I get them in, they wipe out so fast. So this
yeah,
this order that's coming in this week is rather large. So I
yeah,
should be able to put some up on my webpage. If you don't mind me, I'll tell everybody it's www.lipthrashinglures.com. I should have some there, and feel free to order, what you need. And I just
yeah.
appreciate you guys for trying my stuff. And I know I've sent Jeff some stuff, and it was all testers. It's like, hey man, will you give this a shot? Will you give this a shot? And he's always been straight up and honest with me, and he has been a big instrument in helping me perfect some of these baits and get them to where we want them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what it's all about. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure I'm speaking for Jeff and Jimmy when we say that we really don't mind testing them for you, Chuck. This, especially, especially when they catch fish like that. Man, I gotta say, you know, a few years back on Lanier and a lot of the other lakes too, it was Hartwell too, from the baits that I was selling. But a lot of these fish have shifted from a lot of them used to be attracted to translucent baits, but it seems like the last few years they've been more attracted to the chrome baits. And I think that's because of the blueback population. And that skimmer you've got, there was a lot of blueback spawning on Hartwell, and there were a lot of bluebacks and a lot of fish where we were fishing. And that skimmer that you had, that chrome skimmer, it was the perfect bait for that. It really was because it was something chrome. It was something that moved kind of quick, and we could get them to uh, buy into that. So it was a great bait for us, Chuck. We really enjoyed it, and we appreciate all that you're doing for us and all the baits that you've got too, Chuck. So
Yes,
thanks.
sir. I gonna give you a heads up that I spoke with one of the Shimano reps at the
Yeah.
dugout the other day when we were up there for a little thing they were having, and he was telling me that they're coming out. Jackal's coming out with a chrome riser at ICAST, which will be in July. We'll be down there the 17th through the 19th. They'll be coming out with theirs, but it won't be shipped from Japan till probably mid-August. Is what he was saying. And just a heads up, we already have them. We
Oh, is
have
that right?
we have them, and we have a nice supply of them. Once they're gone, it's going to be tough to get them again once Jackal comes out with them. But
Yeah.
we have them right
Yeah.
now. I probably got about 2,500 in stock right now, ready to go. So.
Oh, good, Chuck. Good. We're gonna have to try that because that's another bait that's Jeff. That's one that's gonna come on for you here pretty quick, isn't it?
It
Right.
is actually my client threw it. I think it was yesterday. Yesterday he threw one and caught one on it and lit it up. And actually, it was one of Chuck's. So yes, on calm days because that's a bait I prefer on when it's a little bit slicker, it's a little bit more subtle. Yes, it's time for that to migrate out to the deck for when conditions get tough. No doubt about it.
Good. So I'm looking forward to that too. So Listen, Chuck, I'm going to let you go. We got Jimmy. He's sitting in the studio. He may have fell asleep by now. I don't know. We may have to wake him up. But I know Jimmy's there. He is. He's moving around. Jimmy is awake. So Chuck, thanks for dropping in and seeing us this evening and chatting with us a little bit. We appreciate it. And once again, Chuck, we couldn't have done what we did without your mates. So we sure appreciate it, Chuck, and thanks for hooking us up. Okay.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys.
All right. Take care, Chuck. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right, Jeff. Jimmy's out there. I was going to bring Jimmy in to kind of give us a breakdown of a little bit about his fishing, but what it's like for Jimmy to actually fish the creek when I'm not there. So, and then Jimmy's going to tell us what he's been up to. We got to have Jimmy. So here comes Jimmy.
You got a couple questions in the comment section.
Okay, yeah.
Before we skip them.
Okay, go ahead. You see them?
Yeah. So one guy asked what color gunfish is good from Chuck's site, and I would say pretty much anything. To answer that question, anything in the chrome pattern or the white. So, I mean, if you have to simplify the colors, go with a chrome and a bone/white. Does Chuck chrome baits or someone local? He gets some chrome from somebody not local, Kurt. I don't know exactly who does them, but it's not done local. He gets them done somewhere else. And as far as Cliff goes, yes, if you get a hold of Chuck, I believe he does have some. He will have them here by the end of the week, so you can get yourself some more risers. We already gave you the website for that. And as far as how do you fish the riser, actually, it's probably one of the easiest topwater baits in the history of topwater baits to throw. It is, it's throw it out and wind it back. I mean, that's all there is to it. The key to a riser is you have number 8. 6 at the biggest, 8 is probably best, and I have seen them even with 10s as far as the size of the hooks goes. So it's important to use a light enough action rod where you don't pull those little hooks out of the fish's mouth. So I throw mine on a medium light rod, anywhere from a 610 to a 710 medium light rod, and it works. It works really, really well. It's a lot of fun to catch them on those little light rods also, but that helps prevent pulling those little tiny hooks out of the fish's mouth, particularly spots when they go running. And then when you actually tie into a striper with it, well, that's just a whole nother ball game.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Hey, Wes, how you doing? I'd say hi to a couple of these guys. You got to kind of excuse me. I'm kind of podcast illiterate, so I'm usually not looking over at some of the comments and questions, but I'll get caught up on it. Neighbor Bob, what's up, Neighbor Bob? Hopefully you're still hanging with us. Looks like we still got a few people here. Jack, man, I saw you were making comments there. Jack, how we met him at the dinner on Tuesday evening. Jack's one of our fans. He follows us on Facebook and the podcast. But Jack, he wound up fishing. Jack represented the Air Force, and he fished by himself. And we had dinner with Jack. Had the pleasure of having dinner with Jack and chit-chat with Jack, and then we saw him at the tournament too. So, Jack, it was real fun having dinner with you and seeing you during the tournament. And you got a great lake over there. It's probably fishing a little rough right now, but I think a lot of it has to do with the spawn, and hopefully the pressure kind of eases up a little bit. I know we had this conversation, and I've had this conversation a couple times about, comparing Hartwell to Lanier and the differences that I see in it. And of course, we just took one little snippet at a time out of a lot of time, but you have to take into account that it's spawning season, and a lot of fish are going to be rough. There's some that look rough on Lanier right now too. I've seen some pictures, but hopefully Hartwell's going to kind of recover if it's in a funk. if the bass are in a funk. But anyway, it was a really fun lake. And once again, we finished second in the tournament. Really, really surprised. And I'm sure you guys that are my friends on Facebook, you've seen the videos that I kind of posted along the way in the pictures and those types of things. So we finished second. Yeah, I wanted to say the write-up that they put said we were Navy. And sorry about that, Jeff. We wasn't all Navy. It wasn't a Navy team.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
I know. There's nothing we could do about that. But anyway, we had a great time.
Incognito.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But we had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. And next year, it's going to be on West Point, so we're already looking into that. So, Jimmy Sanders, welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Hello.
Yeah. Sorry it took so long, but man, we were kind of long-winded. So I know Lisa's over here trying to coach me from the side.
Jim's long-winded.
Yeah, she said Jim's long-winded, but
Yeah,
anyway.
Jim is long-winded, Lisa.
Yeah, he agrees, Lisa. So we're kind of winding down to the end of the show. We saved the best for last, so we decided to bring in our biggest brother, Jimmy, here, the elder of the group, and just touch base with Jimmy and find out, Jimmy, what is it like to fish the creek without me there sore lipping every fish and every brush pile and every stop? What was it like when we were gone?
It was enjoyable.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. I'm not really sure that it made that big a difference. There wasn't a lot of traffic in Ball Ridge last week for some reason. I don't know why. But I fished 3 days last week, and I caught I had 15 to 16 pound stringers every day I went out. Monday, throw out to Chuck Thrasher. I received a shipment from him that you talked about, where I gave you some skimmer baits. And the first fish I caught on one of his chrome skimmer baits weighed a tad over 4 pounds. So they do work. But like I said, I didn't catch a lot of fish last week, but what I caught was quality. Like I said, it's 15 to 16 pounds. Tuesday, I had good numbers, but Monday and Wednesday, I mean, I didn't have double digits, but what I caught was quality. And my daughter came in and son-in-law came in Thursday, so I didn't fish any of the rest of the week. And I got back out Monday, yesterday, and I had a pretty good day yesterday, but nothing I caught came off of I'll put it this way: everything I caught came off of servicing fish that was chasing bait. I could not get the fish to come up and commit to anything. I had to be sitting on the spot when they came up.
Now, what's your Jimmy? What's your percentage jerk shad to top water? I mean, how much are you using jerk shad versus targeting? Let's say picking up a walking bait or something like that.
80% jerk shad.
80?
80%, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't had a lot of wind.
Yeah.
Any day that I've gone out. One day I had decent wind, and I thought it would have been a whole lot better top water than what it was, but it wasn't. But the jerk shad in FCN H2O, blue shad, pearl white, and the chartreuse or the pearl with a chartreuse tail have produced most of the fish that I've caught in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, Chuck's bait paid off. I caught one on a gunfish and one 4-pounder on a skimmer one day. with his, and the rest of the fish have pretty much come off of Lanier Baits jerk sheds. And like I said, yesterday I had fish everywhere I stopped, but they would not commit to anything. With the cloud cover, no wind, the rain, fish were everywhere, but they were not relating to anything. They were close to the brush, but not on the brush. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. I caught all my fish yesterday, probably on 3 locations. And I just happened to be sitting there when they came up. But the fish that were coming up were good fish. They were 3-pound plus fish for the most part. So
what's the water temp right now, Jimmy? What'd you read water temp wise?
All right, last week when I took off the water last week on Wednesday, it was 75-ish. Yesterday it was 71. The water temperature dropped about 4 degrees from the last time I was on the water last week until yesterday. I did not fish today. I just didn't get out there today. I fished in a rain suit all day yesterday, and I mean I stayed wet most of the day, so I just decided to take off today and not go out there and put up with it. I'm probably going to fish tomorrow. I know I'm fishing tomorrow because I got a guy coming down fishing with me. I got another guy that's wanting to go out with me on Thursday. Tom Hagee. I'm gonna probably fish with him on Thursday, and we'll see what happens on Friday. But the creek has not been that as busy as I thought it would have been. I mean, I've seen a few, boats out there. Ran into Dylan Crafton out there yesterday. He snuck into the creek and pulled a few good fish out of it, but he was struggling too. He was. The fish have not been really committing to anything. When they hit it, they hit it. But I've had a lot of fish just swirl and just show themselves.
Yeah, man, Dylan, Dylan sneaks into the creek. I see him running up and down the creek every once in a while. I don't know if he's watching, but I fished with Dylan a long time ago, and so I think he kind of took that little bit of that knowledge that I gave him, and I see him circle through the creek every once in a while. So looks like he's learned a lot, because I tell you what, Dylan does pretty good now.
Yeah, well, Dylan and I hooked up probably 3 years ago. Whenever I think that was probably the first time I ever fished with him, and him and his brother are both very good fishermen. They're
both of them, man.
They're both,
and they're girlfriends too.
Oh yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about them.
Well, Brooke, she's got the record trout for Lake Lanier, record.
Yeah. And my buddy Shane Durant took those pictures of her lake record trout that she caught.
Yeah, so they're a good group of fishermen and outdoorsmen as well. I know they all hunt too, but
they kill a lot of good deer.
Yeah, Dylan and his brother and their 2 gals there, Brooke and I can't remember the other one's name, but they're all good outdoorsmen. So I really like Dylan, and I see him in the creek running around here and there. But that's kind of wild that the creek's been kind of empty there for a while, man. It seemed like you just had about take a number to get in that sucker and jump in the rotation,
Yeah, well, Dylan, I was headed for where I have been catching more than one good fish on a little row of brush that I've been fishing, and he got to it before I did. And so I went to another spot, and then I circled back around after he left it, and I did go in there and catch I think I caught a 3.5 pound spot off of it, but that's where they caught one of the spots where they came up surfacing. Like I said, there's brush all down through there, or trees, brush, whatever. I mean, good brush piles, but they would not commit to anything that I threw. But whenever they would come up, I could take the jerk shad and skip it and make it skip about 4 times going across the water and as soon as it would stop, it would just go the other direction. They would, and they had it deep. They would get it.
That's a good, Jimmy, that's a good point to bring up too. Now that we're talking about that is just what you said. And I learned that little technique a couple years ago because it got kind of popular on Lanier a few years back. And it's just what you said. You'd make your cast, and as soon as that sucker hit the water, you make it skip about 10 feet and then kill it. And it just seemed like that 10-foot skip is what got their attention. But it just seemed like you had much better luck if you skipped it a little bit before you slowed it down to isn't that what you're talking about, is just kind of skipping it?
Yeah, well, what they're doing, they're chasing bait.
Yeah.
So I'm skipping it kind of the same way that I do in early April and all the way through April to the 1st of May, skipping docks. I'm skipping it through there and letting it, bounce.
Right.
But, what I'm doing is I'm mimicking the bait fish that they're chasing.
Yeah, skipping across the surface.
Right, and just skipping it across the surface rather than just throwing it out and just let it hit the water and start working it back.
Yeah.
And a lot of these fish, some of the fish that I caught were real close to the boat. I didn't have to skip it very far, but the skipping part paid off more than just throwing it out and working it back on my normal retrieve.
Yeah, that's a good little pattern or way to do it, is try and get the fish's attention a little bit by skipping the bait across the top, just like the blueback,
But they're not there yet as far as my offshore bite, but there's enough there to make it interesting right now.
Yeah.
They're still in the, as Eric Aldrich and I were talking, they're still in the betweens right now, but more of them are moving out. And from some of the reports I've seen here lately, they're getting out there. And tomorrow, when I go out, I'm gonna probably fish some main lake stuff, some main lake points, and humps that I haven't hit so far this year. But the next couple of days, I'm gonna probably be concentrating more on main lake stuff and actually running my regular, milk run and Ball Ridge up through probably 2 Mile Chute.
Awesome. Okay, Jimmy. I think this guy is Alucard AD. He just ordered some gunfish from Chuck's site. Jim or Jeff, give me tips on how to work it. I've never used a lure before. Thanks very much. Well, I can tell you this. The Gunfish 95 is the gunfish that I use. And as far as how to work it back, I'm using the 95 on a spinning reel. And I'll tell you that first. I'm using it on a spinning reel with braid and about a 6 to 8 foot fluorocarbon 8-pound leader. That's what I'm using my Gunfish 95 on. You can cast that thing a long ways with braid and that 6 foot fluorocarbon leader. Gunfish is kind of like a bullet when you go to cast it. When you make the right cast with that spinning rod and that spinning reel, you can throw it a long ways. Now, working it, I'll tell you, there's 2 different ways that I like to work the gunfish. One is back and forth walking the dog, just back, forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the way back to the boat in a walking the dog fashion. But there's another way to work that gunfish that might work better for you, especially when you don't have a lot of wind to work with, when it's kind of flat out, is you want to move it fast. And Jeff will probably attest to this the same, and Jeff will probably tell you how he works his gunfish. But I work mine in a very, very fast walking the dog motion. I mean, we're talking back, 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 boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's back and forth and it's moving fast. It's moving fast enough to where if you look at the front of that gunfish has kind of a flat nose on it. And when you move that gunfish fast, what it's going to do is it's going to push water out in front of it. The faster you move that gunfish back and forth, the more water it pushes out in front of it. And the more water it pushes, that gunfish pushes out in front of it, the more disturbance it makes on the surface. And the more disturbance that gunfish makes on the surface, the more confused that fish is going to get. So there's two ways to work the gunfish for me. Slow, just back and forth. But if they blow up on it and they miss it, speed it up. Don't give them that much of a chance to look at it. So how about you, Jeff? What's your take on the gunfish?
That's pretty very similar. I would say my typical retrieve in starting about now all the way into October is going to be mostly like what you talked about as far as the fast goes. I will work that bait. I throw mine on a bait caster, a medium extra fast rod with 12-pound fluorocarbon, and I can bomb it also. But it is, a 7-to-1 ratio reel, and I'm not burning it, but I'm clipping it on at a pretty good, and I am snapping the rod about as fast as I possibly can. And that little short rod allows me to do very short, very fast little snaps with it. And it's probably only going back and forth, maybe, at most 2 inches, probably closer to an inch before I snap it back the other direction.
Yeah. But I think the idea when you're moving the gunfish fast is not to give the fish, you don't want to give the fish a good look at it. You want him to be kind of confused about it, and it creates more of a reaction strike with the gunfish. As far as the colors to use, chrome is a good one, and Aurora black is by far my favorite. So if I have 2 gunfish in my box, one's going to be chrome, the other one's going to be Aurora black, and that's 2 that work real well for me on Laniers. So it's about the only 2 I use. So there you go. That probably covers that. So I think we're getting ready to sign off here. We've been on about an hour and 15 minutes, I guess it looks like. So
can I say something before we sign off?
Yeah. Jimmy.
The other day I had a question for Ryan Hanks with cast fishing on his Echo. And I sent him a private message, and he actually called me back that same morning and gave me my answer. And I went out with what he told me, and the first cast I made that day with his 5.4 Echo, right at the ramp on Pond Dam, I caught a 3.5-pound largemouth doing what he recommended that I do. I mean, I haven't fished his Echo that much. I mean, I fished the 3-inch a little bit in the wintertime, but I haven't really fished the 5.4. And I fished this plug nose hooked. I think it had a 364 tungsten weight in the nose of it. That's all, pretty much all I had. But I threw that bait out first. This is the first cast of the day. I had just put the boat in and idled over, and I threw out. And when it hit the water, the line just tightened up, and it was a 3.5-pound largemouth, and it was spawned out. It would probably been well over 4 if she'd been a little fatter than what she was. But just a shout out to Ryan and Cast Baits. They not only make one of the best or the best braid on the market, but their soft plastics are top notch too.
Okay.
All right. My advertisement's over with.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, cast. I like their cast braid. I'm down to just about all cast braid now. Just about every rod that I've got's got cast braid on it. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to end up dropping an order for more. But anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. Jeff, you're good. You good? Did we cover everything tonight? Pretty good. You got anything to add? Uh-oh. Hang on. You're muted, Jeff.
Today a little bit, and saw the same thing Jimmy has. It's the fish are getting out, but they're they're not completely there yet. So you may go hit 5 points with brush on the end of them and get blown up on one and then not the other 4. So it's not like you can go and expect to get bit on every single one of them. There's still some that are up shallow. There's some that are out deep. There's typical mid-May scattered all over the place.
Right. Like I said, it's May. It's not. I'm waiting on June to get here.
Yeah, it's not. The June bite has not kicked in yet.
No. Yeah. But when the June bite does, that's when I love it.
Yeah. All right, cool guys. I'm gonna go ahead and start backing y'all out of here. We're gonna call it a night. I'm getting kind of tired. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Chuck. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.
All right, bud.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining in, everybody. We'll see you next time.